And we are live. Welcome, everyone. We have got everybody joining us from four corners of the globe today. It is all times of the day and night. It is 8 p.m. here in Sydney. I'm Danielle Stein, Fairhurst. So welcome to our latest virtual meetup for financial modelling. So we are joined by Jordan Goldmeier from New York. It is what, 6 a.m. for you, Jordan?
That's right, 6 a.m.
Yeah, and we've got the host of the financial modelling podcast, Matthew Banath from Johannesburg. What time is it there for you?
12 o'clock, just hit midday.
Ah, yeah, piece of cake. And Tia, you're normally in London, but I hear you're in Bulgaria today.
I'm currently in Bulgaria, yeah, and it's 1 p.m. here.
Oh, welcome. Okay, I am going to pass you over to Matt, who is the host of the Financial Modelling Podcast. We are recording live, so do feel free. This is very much an interactive podcast, so do feel free to put, type in the chat, type in the Q&A. We'd love to hear from you. We've got lots of interactive polls as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, and it's great to be talking to everybody today from all over the world, which has really now become the norm, right? I mean, I think a year ago, this would have been something out of the norm, and now it's something that we're kind of doing all the time. And really the purpose of today's meetup and what we're going to be chatting about is the power of communities. So we all run different communities. So Danielle, you obviously run the Sydney Financial Modelling Meetup group, an Australian one. You're very heavily involved there. Tia, you run the Global Excel Summit. You run the London Meetup groups. You also were involved in the Financial Modelling Summit with me and Kenny. Jordan, you run Excel TV and you run a data analytics community. I would say in America that it's global. I mean, your last course I went on, and there were a couple of people from London on the course, so it was quite a diverse group as well. And then I also obviously run, as Danielle said, the Financial Modelling Podcast, and also the Johannesburg Financial Modelling Meetup group, and also the Joburg Data Science Meetup group, which is quite cool and really looking at the intersection of those two things. So let me ask the panel, and thanks so much for joining us and being part of the panel today. So let me first ask the panel, and maybe Tia, we can start with you. Let's just talk about the power of community. I mean, for me, the power of community was always important, I think, pre the pandemic, but post the pandemic, I think it's become even more important. People have really been relying on communities, even to the extent, I've heard of stories when somebody has gotten sick and communities have rallied around and brought that person food and helped them self-quarantine or helped family members, whatever the case might be. And of course, we're building these really powerful financial modeling and Excel communities. And similarly, people are helping each other out, right? I mean, I'm sure you've had similar stories from the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that especially now, people need to feel like they're part of something bigger, and especially in times of isolation and when you don't really have the same opportunities to go out, join events live, talk to your friends, talk to any other family members. It's super important that you feel connected to a wider community. You do want to continue learning new things. You want to be part of something where you can find answers to any sort of problems or questions. You want to be able to share your story and then find if there's somebody else who's similar and maybe struggling in a similar way like you. And I think that's very, very important. And once you hear like you're not alone, it completely kind of like changes your whole perspective over a particular situation. So yeah, all of the work that we do, it's very important to provide people with an opportunity to feel part of a safe and inclusive community where they can just really be themselves, share that same like interest and knowledge, and come together and feel that sense of belonging, which I think nowadays is super, super important. And it doesn't matter whether it's virtual or via physical event.
Yeah, and obviously we've moved to these, like, where every event now is virtual, including conferences. We obviously ran the Financial Modelling Summit back in June, which was a virtual event, and I mean, Danielle was one of the presenters there, and the presenters from all over the world. So and that's the norm now, right? Where most of the events are virtual. It's quite interesting. I mean, I'm interested to hear from you, Jordan. I mean, you're in New York. And I think New York was kind of the first part of America that was really hardest hit by COVID. I think it really hit hard there first, right? Whereas, I mean, there's some parts of the rest of America weren't affected at all. So I'm quite interested in your perspective. Like, did New York, was New York moving to a world of online meetings, online events, online summits, etc., before the rest of America? And the people in the rest of America, were they saying, like, why are you doing everything online? Or did everybody kind of go into the same page at the same time?
Well, that's a great question. I think that most everyone went on the same page at about the same time, just because New York is such a hub, for commerce, that it really sort of set the standard. I mean, and to be sure, I think the standard is still being set. Like, we're still figuring out our relationship with this technology. For me, I think I used to go to these meetups in person in New York, and I didn't love always going in person. I forced myself to go because I can be kind of an introvert sometimes. And I think there are a lot of people who would have loved to have a virtual way of like doing meetups, but there was so much pressure to go out and just be part of it, And one of the interesting effects of this is that, now that I've like a lot of the regular meetups I was going to in New York have been replaced with virtual ones. It's now you're joining a lot more people, but also where someone was coming in and you did get to see them, like a really cool speaker, like you got to see them up close. You never really talked to them, but now there's something humanizing about seeing someone like, this is my room, like this is, you see people who would have otherwise been dressed up on a podium now across from you in their own house. Like, there's a different type of connection in a world where we always say that we're disconnected. Like, I think there's something to be said about that, a new way of learning.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and that's why I think a lot of this will be still present post sort of COVID and post the era that we're in, but we'll get to that. Danielle, I mean, coming to you, I mean, you're kind of almost ahead of the curve, right? I mean, I was in Australia, and I'm trying to think, I think when was it, 2018?
Yeah, it was,
and I presented,
years ago.
Yeah, so over, right? And I mean, I presented at a meetup there, and I remember the meetup was already completely virtual. I mean, you had it on Facebook Live, and people were asking questions on Facebook Live. So I mean, you were kind of ahead of the time, right? You were running virtual events before it became the norm.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons that I started running the meetups a few years ago. Just what Jordan said just then is that quite often I find, particularly people who are into Excel and certainly financial modelers, we're often not, we're more comfortable talking to our keyboards than we are talking to other people. And the reason that I started to create these groups was that I often found that people were the only one in their organization who really cared about which formula should I use, or, what design, what's the layout of, what should my financial statements look like, and that sort of thing. Those sorts of questions to ask. They didn't really have a group of other people that they could do that. And there certainly was always the online forums, but by having a place where people could come and actually meet face to face was the reason for doing it. And now, actually having these live sessions is kind of putting a bit of a different spin on it.
Yeah, and I'm quite interested to also see what the audience thinks. And I know there's quite a few attendees now, and I know we have some polls lined up. And I think one of the first questions is how connected people feel now versus before the pandemic. So I think, yeah, so there it's just come up there. And have you felt more or less connected during lockdown and the pandemic? And I think most people are already saying I felt more connected, which is really interesting. So we'll report on the result of that poll as the answers come through there. But I mean, I think we've all touched on something quite important, and I think, Danielle, you hit the nail on the head, right? Sometimes you're the only person in your organization that cares about the layout or the chart formatting, and the fact that this chart should be formatted like this, and this is the best way to visualize data, or this is the best formula to use, or how should I be analyzing my data or finances. But obviously, being part of a wider community beyond your organization, or even beyond sometimes your city, or whatever the case might be, is really powerful. So I'm quite interested to hear from the different perspectives. What's been your kind of most rewarding element of building a community? I mean, I'll start off by saying, for me, it's really been able to help people. So a lot of people have lost their jobs during this unfortunate time. And the power of the community is really twofold, because firstly, you can educate the community, so you can actually upskill them in maybe a new skill that is easier to find a job in. And secondly, you can actually connect people much more easily with recruiters and people that are looking for certain skill sets. And having the power of the community is really important. So for example, the community that we run, I think they're quite niche and they're quite focused. They're focused on either data analytics or financial modeling. It's quite a niche thing. So for somebody who specifically wants a financial modeler, it's a perfect place for them to go and recruit from, because they know that like everybody in the room is a financial modeler. So for me, that's been quite rewarding. I mean, Danielle, starting with you, maybe what's been the most rewarding aspect for you of running and building a community?
Yeah, it is kind of a bit of a scary thing to start. When you first do it, you kind of put yourself out there and you think, is anyone going to turn up? I think the first one I had in Melbourne, we had 6 people turn up, and you think, oh my gosh, is anybody really interested in? And to see, and it's been really rewarding to see that grow into something, where we would regularly have 100 or so people actually turn up. I'm not talking about RSVPs, because people actually show up, and the people who who register are 2 different things, but to actually have these fully crowded rooms of people that were just absolutely wanting to know more about financial modeling and learning. I've learned so much along the way with that.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. I think people kind of view community builders as these almost like organizers that kind of know everything and just putting you in touch with people who know things. But I mean, me too. I mean, I sit in these meetups and I learn so much. I mean, I think on the last data science meetup in Joburg, it was a virtual event, and Jordan presented, and there I am sitting taking notes. So I think certainly even as
I always learn something. But every time I run a meetup, I take tons of notes and learn so much.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? And I mean, I almost think it's a bit of a selfish thing, because I'm like, well, I run the meetup, so I can just invite whoever I want to kind of speak on whatever topic I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I really want to know more about data.
You guys can come along and learn too.
Exactly, right? So I'm like, oh man, I really want to learn about, I really love Jordan's course on data visualization. I wish I could listen to that again. Let me just invite him to the meetup. And it's basically it's like a personal session to me, but obviously everybody else is there as well. I mean, Tia, what's been rewarding for you? I mean, you've built up a lot of different sort of communities, right? And I mean, the Global Excel Summit and the Financial Modeling Summit, and now you're involved in the meetups, and now you're involved in masterclasses as well. So you've built a lot of different sort of platforms there. What's been the most rewarding aspect for you?
Yeah, so I would say that the work that we've done with Alan Murray on the London Excel Meetup group has definitely been the most rewarding experience. And I think, as Danielle was mentioning, seeing a group grow, and especially now when the geographical boundaries are no longer there, and you can really see people from all over the world joining. It doesn't matter that it's called a London Excel Meetup group, everybody's welcome at all times. And seeing so many experts being there every single time, wanting to engage with you, asking you, how are you doing? It doesn't really matter whether you're a Microsoft MVP or whether you're working at a very kind of junior position in a company. Everybody's equal, and it doesn't matter. And just seeing that people, again, as Danielle was saying, they are there to learn something new, and they join every single event, and you kind of get to know them a little bit better and on a little bit more of a personal level. I think that's when when you see that engagement, that's when it becomes extremely rewarding. And then when you see people's feedback and they really respect and enjoy the content that you're providing, I think that sense of gratitude, even from their side, it's super inspirational and motivational for the organizers.
Yeah, and I'll just report on the poll, because we've just closed the poll. So about 70% of people are saying they felt more connected, which is interesting. I guess we probably should have included an option there to say they felt the same amount of connected, but
it's a bit of both, isn't it? In some ways you're more, in some ways you're less.
But I mean, on the whole, people saying they felt more connected, and I guess I've certainly felt more connected. I mean, Jordan, what's been your most rewarding aspect of building a community, or is it just to see people's know more people in the world using pie charts? Would that be rewarding enough for you?
No, well, as I talked about in the training, sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're okay. Here's the way I look at it, because I think so much of the training, because I love doing training, so much of the Excel training right now, it's the beginner, intermediate, advanced, and that set of courses, right, that is actually all still a beginner course, because all of it is aimed towards people who don't use Excel, right? To get them up to, to show them what's there. So despite it being called advanced, it's not really advanced. And I really think there's like this dearth of material from people who are practitioners like us, who are like really building stuff, who use Excel every day. So being able to speak to those people who are not getting like classes for them, who don't like, are not getting the right channels, being able to connect with them, and also just to learn from what they're doing too across the world. In New York, there is like a way that they do financial modeling that is different than when I was in Ohio. And I just think I see some of these financial models and just models in general across the world. I go, okay, that's kind of different. That's a different way of doing it. So all of that just being part of that community of people who do use Excel virtually every day.
Yeah, and I'll just disagree with you on one point there, because
Okay.
my advanced Excel course used to only be VBA. So that was so.
Well, but I mean, that's fair. I think that's like people have always been stuck into. Hey, here's what is like in these categories, and not there's a category for the experienced person who's used Excel as an analyst. Like, what are we going to do to get them to like solve their problems better?
Yeah, and it's and it's quite interesting. So I'm involved in a couple of interviews for interviewing kind of data scientists, and one of the questions I always ask is what do you think of Excel as a data analytics tool? And what I find is the more junior people often say, I don't like Excel. And then the more senior people or more experienced people say, I've recently realized how powerful Excel is. And actually everything I can do in Python, I can actually do in Excel. And I can do like k-means clustering in Excel and all sorts of things. So it's really interesting to kind of, to get that perspective. Obviously building communities is challenging though. So Danielle, I mean, I've kind of shared your sort of experience of like, you get to meet up and like nobody's there yet. And you're like, what if like one other person comes and like you've got to present and they're presenting to like 3 people. So maybe let's.
One of the funny things about the Zoom meetings is that they're always. Sorry, one of the things that's great about the Zoom meetings is that people are on time.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because I mean, for the data science meetup, it used to be like, okay, it starts at 7, but it actually starts like 20 past 7.
Right.
Whereas yeah, it seems like now, and I mean, it's the same thing I've noticed with corporate meetings. It's like meetings starting at 12, people would come in at 5 past 12 and be like, fine. Now, if somebody gets in at the Zoom meeting or Teams meeting at like 1 past 12, they're like, oh, I'm sorry for being late.
Yeah.
Because everybody's
it's very efficient, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So my question for you guys is that building communities, there are challenges. I mean, so I just alluded to one of them, and there are multiple different things. I mean, I guess the virtual world's a little bit easier. One of the other challenges I always faced was kind of like where to host these things, right? You'd always have to like find somebody who could like host it, or like find somebody had an office that was willing to give you the space, etc. But obviously there are other different challenges in the virtual world. So maybe like just talk through some of the challenges, just in case anybody listening is thinking, geez, I wouldn't mind building a community wherever I am in the world. Just some of the challenges you faced and sort of what the outcome was. And yeah, let's, Danielle.
Yeah, it's you're right. Having the venue was always the big challenge because we would often do it in a pub, and you'd either have to pay a lot for the room. There'd be a lot of room hire or minimum spend, and then or it would be in a sort of open bar, and you've got people walking through making a lot of noise, so it's not really practical for having a speaker. So that was always challenging. Or you have to, beg, borrow, and steal somebody's corporate office. And so the Zoom meetings are a heck of a lot easier. And that's actually the reason why I've been running these every week, pretty much since around the middle of March when this happened. We sort of had a whole lot of live events that were scheduled, and we said, okay, great, we'll do them online. And then I did one, and I went, oh, well, that was actually pretty easy. And then we did another one, and we're like, well, let's just do these every week because we can, and it just means that the frequency is, you know, much quicker, and we're able to just kind of hold a lot more online events. But I must say that I am getting, and I'm sure everybody else is getting very tired of webinars, and so that's why I've been trying to run more fun events like a debate, or we've got a World Cup financial modelling competition coming up. We've got yeah, this kind of more interesting style of events rather than just a webinar, which is kind of boring.
Yeah, so I hear you there. You got to kind of keep it exciting, right? Because everybody's not just sitting in front of their computer every day in meetings or on webinars. Or if I attend a training, it's in front of my computer. If I'm learning, it's in front of my computer. If I'm at work, it's in front of my computer. So definitely, we've certainly found that in obviously I get to have a look at a lot of sort of banking data, which is really interesting. And we've seen now, obviously, the online world has just exploded because it's now everyone's gateway to everything, whether that's education or training or work or entertainment. And obviously, and you see that as well. I mean, you know, companies like Udemy are kind of releasing their results and saying their online training kind of went up 1 month by 400% because all of a sudden the entire world went online. And it was a necessary shift. Tia, I mean, I'm really interested from your perspective and Jordan's perspective. What are the difficulties in running communities? I mean, you obviously, Danielle, you also live in a global financial hub, and I do as well. But Jordan and Tia, like, what are the challenges that you guys face? Tia, you've set up a number of different communities and some new ones, and you've even had to move one of your communities online. I mean, Global Excel Summit was going to be a live event, right? In London, I was going to go there and present and host the podcast from there, and then kind of we had to move it all online. So what's been the challenges there?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge is being able to adapt quickly to the new circumstances, because this is something that nobody was expecting. And yes, we were fully ready to deliver the Global Excel Summit in April. And we were super excited to see all the speakers coming from different parts of the world, including Danielle and Jordan, and yourself. And then the borders closed.
Tia, you're just breaking up a bit, or it might just be for me.
The venue from one quarter.
Tia, maybe while you...
Sorry, can you hear me?
Sort of the connection broke up there for a second, but you're back now, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that, you know, it's quite challenging to move something that's so big, but at the same time, you have to meet your audience's expectations. So although we had to move it from April to February next year, we did want to keep our community engaged, which is why we set up some summer masterclass sessions. And then it was actually great timing to host the first financial modeling summit as well. So that was, I think, a very successful virtual event, and we were able to deliver not only the conference side of things, but also set up an exhibition hall. And I think the Fairhurst platform was quite good from the perspective that it could give people a truly rich virtual experience that maybe they weren't used to. And that also goes back to the point that we want to keep it interesting for everybody. We want to be able to surprise and delight and not just deliver something that everybody else has been delivering. And it's very important to keep the community engaged by offering different opportunities for sharing knowledge, learning new things, solving problems, and really trying to respond to what the audience needs at that particular point in time. So content is very, very important. But yeah, I mean, I think also there is definitely the challenge of, you know, a virtual event can never fully replace a physical event. And that connection, you know, that maybe you would create with the other attendees and meeting somebody in person, you know, it's very difficult to bring via a computer and via internet. So that's been a bit challenging. And it's the same, like, for example, everybody who's attended a live sporting event, for example, would know the difference. You know, if you can just watch it on TV, you would definitely do it and you would still enjoy it. But being at a live stadium, for example, whether it's a football event, basketball event, tennis match, you know, it's a completely different experience and feeling. That's very difficult to replace via virtual event. But you do whatever you can do, you do your best, and yeah.
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head, because it's those small little things that actually make the biggest difference. I mean, for me, somebody said to me the other day, like, Matthew, what do you miss most about being in the office? And being in the office was nice. I mean, I won't lie, I have, like, fortunate enough to have got a pretty nice office at work, and it's nice view and everything like that. But what I miss most is the small things. I miss being able to say, hey, Jordan, let's just go down for a coffee, and not speak about anything specific, just talk about rubbish, like not even talk about work, and just get to know each other. And that's the kind of thing I miss. So I miss that interpersonal aspect. And look, I said coffee there because I do miss going out for different coffees. Anybody that listens to me, anybody that knows me knows I'm basically the biggest coffee addict, coffee fan. About 3 of the books sitting on my bookshelf behind me are just about the origins of coffee and where coffee comes from in the world and how to make it. So that's definitely something I miss. And basically my most amount of research I did before I thought I was going to the Global Excel Summit was where all the good coffee shops were around the summit. So, but I mean, that's small. I agree with you, and you're never going to replace that interpersonal aspect. Jordan, I mean, what's been challenging for you? I mean, I guess the one good thing is that you've been able to access an audience that's much larger than the immediate New York audience.
I mean, and that's right. And I should say too, how you are about coffee, I am about hot dogs. I love hot dogs. But the other thing is, I think that, Excel TV has always been kind of global. We've always had a global audience when we first started out. And I think it's probably worse now for people who are starting out. Just if you want to build a community, there's a lot of competing for people's attention out there. So for the people listening, they're thinking, oh, I want to go out there, I want to go build something. It really is a matter of just putting content out and just keep doing it so that other people are able to see it. And then I think in addition to everything else, that a lot of this technology is growing faster than our ability to define the opportunities and challenges it creates, which is to say that there are tons of new opportunities out here that's beyond YouTube, beyond meetups, things like that we haven't really even thought about in ways to connect to people. I mean, if you were in the investing space, you might use Telegram. I know people are using WhatsApp. I've not seen someone do an Excel Telegram. I've not seen really anyone do Excel on Twitch, though I'm not huge on Twitch either, so I could be wrong. I started seeing someone doing one on TikTok. It's really interesting. Her stuff is really cool.
That's what I was about to ask. TikTok? So TikTok, yeah. The only thing I've actually seen on TikTok, in fairness, is videos of dogs dancing. So
right, but the thing is, you and I may not we may just go on TikTok. Like, I don't even have TikTok on my phone. At some point in the future, I'll probably put it on, but like you and I may just relate to it in a specific way, but there's a whole new generation of people who are using it to learn. And like, you could go speak to them. You don't have to go and chase the YouTube game that everyone else is doing. You could go find something new, or you could, I mean, there's nothing wrong with blogging either, doing it, some of the methods that I did, but I just want to say that the world is vast and big, and we're only just starting to really connect with everyone. And there's so many ways to get in, so don't let any sort of specific way hold you back if you want to build a community.
I think that's great advice, because you're quite right. I think that there are lots of people that are on various platforms that actually aren't even on LinkedIn or YouTube, and there are other ways to connect with them, right? So I think you've hit the nail on the head. What's really interesting, so we've launched a poll here, and the poll is, how many hours a day do you estimate that you spend on Zoom and other online meetings? Now, for me, it's like 8 hours a day, at least, every single day. And I'm really interested that nobody voted more than 5 hours, right? So most people, 70%, said 1 to 2 hours a day, which okay, maybe I've just got a meeting intensive job, but for me, it's at least, 8 hours. Maybe let's go around the table. I mean, Tia, how many hours a day would you say you sit on meetings?
Most of the days, more than 5 hours, especially now that people can work, and I've been like traveling and working from home, being able to still work with all of your colleagues and partners. You have to be in constant communication. So yeah, I would say more than 5 hours.
Yeah. Danielle?
Yeah, I'm surprised at that too. I would have thought most people would spend at least probably half a day. I probably do at least a couple of hours. I actually went to see a client today, face to face. I was so excited. I'm all dressed up and I'm, just really excited about getting out of the house because this is my office. This is where I have been for 6 months. So I actually went to physically be in the office, which was fantastic because we don't have a very strict lockdown like they do in Melbourne, but we're still very slowly opening up. But yeah, generally I probably, certainly if I'm doing consulting work, I'd probably spend at least 3 or 4 hours a day. And then training is just, the whole thing is on Zoom, and then there's odd meeting here and there. And quite often, this is why we often do the meetups at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because I find that people have been on Zoom all day, and the last thing they want to do is spend another hour on Zoom. So we try to sort of make it not too late, before dinner. The timing is I think important for people.
It's quite, what you just said reminded me of this cartoon I saw yesterday. It's this guy who's being abducted by aliens, and he's really happy, and the aliens are saying, "Aren't you scared? Isn't this a terrifying alien abduction?" And the guy says, "To be honest with you, I'm just really excited to get out of my house." It's kind of like, I guess, how everybody feels at the moment, right? Jordan, how much time do you spend? I'm super surprised by these answers.
Honestly, okay, so when I was like working in a corporate world, I would work from home sometimes, and I maybe spent like 7 or 8 hours. In fact, it was like all day was spent on meetings, and then at night I could actually do a little bit of work for like an hour. Now, it's a toss-up because sometimes I have to shut everything off because I'm going to be working on content. I've been working for myself the better part of 3 years, so I've been spending a lot of time for meeting anyway. So it really wasn't a huge change for me, if I'm going to be honest. I would say in a good week, when I am full up, I would spend like 5 or 6. I have like 5 or 6 meetings. If I'm delivering, online, that could be a whole day. But ideally, what I've really discovered, and maybe this goes to how people answered, is that people get fatigued after about 4 hours. So now when we do virtual training, like I don't go beyond 4 hours because I get fatigued too in delivering it. But it took a while to learn that, because I would say yes to everything, let's do this, let's do that. So the 3 to 4 hour mark seems to be really where people are hitting their limits, whatever that's worth. That's my anecdotal research.
Yeah. So I'm just reading through some of the comments in the chat, and Joe O'Keefe says, here in the States and perhaps throughout the world, our Toastmaster Club has met virtually. Everybody's met virtually, I think. So that probably is very similar. He says, sure, the energy of a speaker's presentation isn't the same as being in the same place, but we are beginning to expand our meetings using Zoom. And one thing that's constant, everything changes. So that's sure, right? Everything does change. And yeah, it's just, I guess, about how quickly you adapt. And obviously people that adapted very quickly, and kind of could see it coming and that could adapt, certainly are the winners. And unfortunately, obviously, some people couldn't adapt, right? So I guess, as I said, I'm a huge coffee fan, and coffee shops have been hit hard because a coffee shop can't adapt, they can't digitize. they offer coffee, physically, and obviously, and now it's mostly takeaway. But yeah, so obviously it is quite important to support local communities as well, and local businesses and small businesses as much as possible, and something I certainly believe in. So I think we've all kind of touched on the fact, and Tia, you really hit the nail on the head about the fact that things are not, it's nice and it's the new normal, but it's not the same as doing things in person. And I think we can all sympathize or empathize with that. And maybe while we're doing the next question, I know we've got another poll that's actually, would you continue attending virtual meetups and virtual training when this is all over and you don't actually have to anymore? So the question is, are you planning to continue to attend virtual meetings and conferences post-COVID? And the 3 options there: yes, I love them, we'll keep attending, maybe a few, and no, I can't wait to get back to normal. And maybe let's go around, and Jordan, maybe you can start with you. And what do you think? Do you think that when COVID's over, we're kind of going to revert to the way that we used to do things, or do you think virtual seminars, virtual events are now the new norm and will continue to be around?
I think it's both. And I think before we just took meeting in person for granted, that this is what it was going to be, that this is the way that we connect with people. And now we're realizing that there's a whole other way to do it. And we've just sort of accepted, oh, this is the science, you have to meet with people. I think that what's going to happen is these two things are going to be optimized and they're going to realign. So, which is to say, like, meeting in person is going to be designed for meeting in person to make the best benefits of what that's supposed to be. And meeting online is going to start becoming a very viable option. And we have not really conceived of the technologies of ways of being connected, of replacing that experience. But as time goes on, we're going to, because it is a very scalable thing, right? I mean, it's not expensive, it's easy to deliver, and we've all become like acclimated to it in a way. So I think that there's going to be like a renaissance with the online stuff. And I think that the in-person stuff is going to have to really kind of become really good, or it's going to have like a harder time competing.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, Jordan. I basically completely stopped listening to you after I noticed that there's potentially a tattoo of a hot dog on your arm. So could we just take a moment to confirm, yeah, there is indeed a tattoo of a hot dog on Jordan's arm. Okay.
Where's your coffee tattoo?
Jordan is a confirmed hot dog lover. Yeah, I need to get one. Okay, brilliant. I think that's a highlight of the...
You lost your chain of thought there, Matthew.
Yeah, I don't even know what's going on. My mind is blown. That is literally, Jordan, you have to put that on a picture on your Instagram so I can reshare that. Danielle, what do you think? Is this the new normal? I mean, for you, it was already the normal. As I said, you were kind of running virtual events before COVID, right? So you're just not going to stop.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to, I mean, we had one, I was actually last year in Vanuatu, and we had a Sydney meetup and I couldn't make it. And so I Skyped in, so we had sort of the audience and I was able to talk to them virtually, and we had the speaker and we ran as normal. And so that was fun. But I'm looking forward to doing stuff like that. I imagine we'll be able to sort of, if the technology, we have to have a dedicated room though to have the technology set up. So we'll have, a camera, and I've sort of tried to figure out how all of that would work, is having, perhaps the Zoom on one. And I think the universities are already doing that, where you've got sort of a blend of both. And I think that's really going to be fantastic in the future. I really think we have come so far. I mean, this situation that we've found ourselves in, that, it's been difficult for everyone, but it's just, there's been so many good things that have come of it. And I think that there's just been such fantastic advances and acceptances of working virtually. And I really think that we will take out the good parts of it going forward. We won't, be driving, a long time for a meeting that's not worth our time. We'll just do that via Zoom. And as Jordan said, if we're going to do something in person, it's got to be really good and really worth it. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely agree with you. I think Jordan, you're right. People kind of took it for granted that we meet in person, or I drive to somebody's office to meet them, and that's just the way it is. Where now that's going to be the exception rather than the norm, and you're really going to have to make it worthwhile, because I think people are going to value their time a lot more, and meeting people in person a lot more. So I guess that's a good thing. So what's interesting is in the poll, only one person said they can't wait to get back to normal. Most people, 70%, said they love virtual meetings and meetups and conferences, and they're going to keep attending them, which is the general feedback I've kind of heard as well. And then about almost 30% of people said, yeah, maybe a few, but that's basically saying, it's sort of 97% of the attend, or the responses over here are pointing to the fact that they would at least attend one or two virtual events. And if I go to the chat, it's people are saying, the really positive thing that's come out of the pandemic is the exposure to great online content and trainers, which are probably overlooked pre-COVID. I completely agree with you there, Rajiv. Also, there is a sudden realization to upskill as well, and people are doing that all the time. And of course, you can do that from sitting at home in front of your home office. So I think I completely agree with you. Yeah, great. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions that we had for the attendees. Maybe I'll just hand over to one more question. What
about online conferences.
Okay, I mean, let's launch it and see what the results are. So this is quite interesting. Have you attended an online conference this year? So I think everybody would have attended an online meetup, and already the answers are coming through saying yes, I've attended quite a few. Most people are saying that. But to wrap up, obviously, you know, it's always great chatting to you, Danielle, Jordan, and Tia. I think we all look at running our different communities and what we can do in our different corners of the world. So any sort of final thoughts in terms of the community of the future and maybe any immediate events you guys have planned in the next month or so that people can look forward to? Tia, what's going on in your community world?
Yeah, we actually have a London Excel Meetup event tomorrow. So whoever's able to join, it's always 6 p.m. British Summer Time. And yeah, so
3 a.m. for me, so I won't be there.
Great. But yeah, just as a kind of like final thoughts, I want to mention that in my opinion, virtual events will definitely continue, and communities as a whole will continue growing. And I think as people are becoming more and more digitally literate, that curve will probably even will continue increasing exponentially over the next few years. There will definitely be, I think it's all about the personal connection versus convenience, and what the virtual events are giving as a kind of like opportunity for engagement and being able to interact with other people from sharing the same interests. You know, that's something that's much more, it's much easier when you attend an online event. And yeah, a lot of people are seeing that. So nothing will replace the physical event, and I think that will continue being kind of like a premium experience. But at the same time, more and more people will be involved with digital content because there's just so much information and you can learn so much and really upskill and yeah, just take advantage of all the resources that are out there that are really unlimited.
Yeah, I really like what you've said in terms of the in-person event being a kind of premium event. And I think you're 100% correct. So and before I hand over to Jordan to hear his views, so the final poll results, so at least 80% of people saying they've attended at least one online conference, and I mean almost 65% here saying that they've attended quite a few. So that's really interesting, and I think you've got to continue attending conferences and continue learning and meeting people, even if we are in a pandemic and you can't meet them in person. You've got to continue meeting people, and I've met some amazing people, yeah, just online. I mean, I think Danielle, you're the only person on this panel that I've met in person. So certainly you can meet some amazing people online. Jordan, anything exciting happening in your world in the next month or so? What can people look forward to, and what are your sort of final thoughts on virtual communities?
Sure. So I don't have anything open enrollment yet. I'm working on stuff. So just if you're in the community, you want to learn from me, just stand by because I will let you know about that as it's coming together. You know, I think in terms of virtual communities versus regular, I still think that we still think in terms of like the standard being if you met in person, right? And we really need to be open to the possibility that virtual is going to develop ways in which we are going to like have the personal touch that we just haven't imagined yet. And it's going to happen because, you know, like I said, this is a medium that's working. Before COVID, people may have been like, you know, virtual meetups, that's for like, there were not virtual meetups, virtual conferences. There were virtual conferences beforehand, but they didn't feel as legitimate. So now that they're being legitimized, people are going to come up with novel ways to replace that connection, which will be like specific to the online community. So really, I think that, you know, if you want to build a community, if you're a smart modeler out there and you're thinking, hey, I want to do this, this is like a moment to really rethink this problem and to come in a new way, drive engagement in ways that other people haven't seen before. You know, you could be the first to do it. And so I really like that. That's an exciting opportunity, I think. So I'm very motivated by that challenge.
Yeah, and I think you're right. People are definitely, even now, like, coming up with different ways to connect. And for example, I was recently invited to attend a panel by a company, and the company kind of sent everybody, it was like supposed to be a coffee chat on Zoom, and the company sent everybody this box that had a bag of ground coffee and like a French press. So everybody could kind of make the same coffee, drink from the French press, and then had like you got a mug with the company's name, which was quite cool, right? So we're all sitting on Zoom, all in different parts of Joburg, but everybody's kind of sitting there with the company coffee mug, and it kind of almost looks like we're in the same room, and we all got served a mug by the company, which is quite smart. Yeah, Danielle, from you, what are your thoughts in terms of the future of communities?
Yeah, there's a lot going on at the moment. You know, I think what we found to be quite popular in terms of the training that I do, I've always had a lot of on-demand training, so that's pre-recorded videos that people can watch at any time, and they've certainly been more popular than usual. But I think people really want the live, like the actual interaction, you know, being able to sort of get that response quickly. And so we found that having these virtual meetups like this, so financial modelling meetups that we've been doing once a week, have certainly been really, really popular. And then also these kind of live, like sort of webinar style training sessions have certainly been very popular as well. And I'm really looking forward to getting in front of an audience again. I'm fingers crossed that we will get to go back to London. I still have my ticket for London. I'm really hoping that we'll get to do that. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we did have some questions that we'll maybe address some of them now, but just to maybe wrap up the live event, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Tia, Jordan, and of course Danielle for organizing the meetup. Thank you very much everybody for joining us today, and hopefully we can all continue to collaborate and build these powerful virtual communities around the world.
Great, and I look forward to, we're actually doing one same time a bit later than we normally do. We're doing one next week with the guys from FMI, which will be a panel of people again from all around the world on sort of a Q&A on sitting the Financial Modelling Institute Level 1 exam, if people are planning to attend that in October.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thanks very much. Thanks everybody for attending. Thanks Danielle, Jordan, and Tia. Always great to catch up with you guys. And I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Thank you, Matthew.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Danielle, so there was a question that came through, and I think it's mostly aimed at you, but we can all, I guess, answer it. So Hussein Nasser says, he put quite a few questions in the Q&A, and he says, hi, hello, can I market my financial modeling skills for small companies if he's in a new industry? He says he lives in Bahrain. He wants to be a financial consultant, and he's training every day to increase his skills. And he says, can we give him some ideas and advice on how to market his skills in finance? I don't know if Danielle, you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so marketing your skills in finance. I'm certainly having working on his skills using the opportunities of everything available online. Just getting some experience, I suppose, there's lots of case studies that you can do. You can take a look at Model Off, for example. There's tons of case studies that you can work through to improve your skills. And then in terms of marketing, to perhaps engage in social media about what you've been doing. That's perhaps a way of marketing. I don't know if you guys have any other ideas on that.
My view is always just go out into the community, go on LinkedIn, look at the problems people are dealing with and seeing how you can help out and make connections through that. And then just being very vocal about your desire to land a job in that space, letting people know, not to the point of being annoying, but just making sure that they know so that when the right opportunity comes along, you're poised to say yes.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Tia, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you should try and don't ever give up on trying. And I would say you can go on LinkedIn, you can try and join any of the financial modeling, yes, again, like meetup groups, or listen to Matthew's podcast on a regular basis. And there's just so much, even like free content that you can learn. There's actually, maybe we can also mention the financial modeling essential course by Kenny and Gridlines. And I think that right now he's offering that for free forever. So that's also a good like starting point.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. I can only echo that. There's so much great content online to learn from, and online is the way to market as well, whether it's social media on LinkedIn or having your own blog and giving advice. Yeah, it's a great way to connect with potential clients. Awesome. Thanks very much again, everybody. Great to chat to you all again. And yeah, we'll obviously be recording this and I'll release it as a podcast pretty soon, the Financial Modeling Podcast.
Look forward to hearing it.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Jordan.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye.